Thank you, Stephanie. I love when I go out places and the music just absolutely matches, right? It's like minimal guidance and things just line up. It's trusting the process there. Always trusting that process. So this weekend, my family and I decided, well, we're going to be in Lawrence on Sunday, so why not make a whole weekend out of it? So we've decided to take our RV out, and we're here at the KOA just down the street through tomorrow. Actually, we've been here since Friday, so feeling relaxed and rejuvenated, and felt really weird putting on, shoes that had any sort of heel on them today. It's like, oh, I'm at a campground. This feels weird. But being out at the campground reminded me of this time many years ago. I was sitting in a coffee shop, and I overheard a conversation of two women next to me. Now, some people would call this eavesdropping, but since we're in church, we're going to call it overhearing. A divine conversation that I was meant to hear in order to share it with you today. So these two older women were having a conversation, and one was telling her friend of her husband's lifelong dream to own an RV. She was telling her friend he would always talk about all these places we were going to go, what we were going to do, how much fun it would be. And he would always end this series of imaginings with, when I retire. So this dream, this calling, this longing kept getting put off, kept getting put off, kept getting put off. But he kept holding the vision, right? When I retire, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. Well, I heard her share to her friend, when he retired, he got sick. And he ended up passing away before they got the RV. And it made me wonder, when I left that day, how many of us walk around with unfulfilled dreams? How many of us have this dream that keeps bubbling up, and maybe we keep imagining it, maybe we keep saying, okay, yeah, that would be fun. So we're enacting like one part of the process, but we don't take the next step, we don't take the action to make that dream become a reality. And so it stays a dream. It stays in this place of infinite potential waiting to be acted out in our lives. But until we take that step towards it, it doesn't become a reality in our lives. We don't see it. So today we're going to talk about, what are those dreams? Where are they showing up in your life? How do you know when it's this deep longing, this dream of your heart, versus maybe a dream for some ice cream because it's a really hot day, right? How do we know that difference? Maybe it's the same thing. Maybe it's one and the same, right? Maybe. Right, so how do we know the difference? And then what do we do? What's that turning point towards taking that step? How do we move from just a thought to an action? And I think Cherie mentioned that too, like the time has come to shine our light, and these dreams, these longings, these callings are our light, our inner core seeking to be expressed. And yet sometimes we say, well, later, when I retire, when I'm done with school, when I'm done with this thing, when my kids are older, when I have $1 million saved up in the bank account, then I can follow my dreams. So we're going to talk about how to just take action right now, take that step where we are, and start moving towards these dreams. Because really, the dreams are not just some personal longing, some personal desire. When they are the dreams of your heart, and you know the difference, right? And we'll talk about that too. But when they're that deep inner core dream that keeps repeating, this is the Spirit of God speaking to you. It is the Spirit of God as you seeking to be expressed in the world as that light. And we might not know yet, why are we being called to this thing, but when we say yes to it, the why will be revealed to us, and the how will be revealed to us. So these dreams of our heart are our pathway, right? Like our little personal guidance system that will lead us back to that full consciousness, full awareness of the Christ presence within, God as us seeking to be expressed in the world. Now, sometimes we feel connected to that core. Sometimes we feel, right? You sit in your time of prayer and meditation and it's like, bliss. I am one with the one. I feel connected to all things. And other times, perhaps you sit in meditation and prayer and it looks more like this. And you just can't get connected. You feel like there's this disconnect somehow from something that's all present and expressing as you. And yet, we feel disconnected, right? It's part of our human experience. The poet Hafiz wrote this beautiful, short little poem that I think sums this up so very well. So the title of the poem is called Damn Thirsty. And it goes like this. First, the fish needs to say, something ain't right about this camel ride. And I'm feeling so damn thirsty. Do you ever feel like a fish on a camel, stuck in an endless desert, isolated, alone, parched, unfulfilled? Do you ever feel like that fish? And the moment we realize, oh my gosh, I am really thirsty. Why am I on this camel? What am I doing in this desert? When we start asking those questions, then the next question we ask is, how do I get back to the sea? How do I get back to the sea? And I believe that those dreams of our heart are the navigation system. They're like the tour guide that shows up at the next oasis, right? You park your camel, you get off, you go get like a little sip of water, and somebody just poof appears. And they're like, hey, maybe you should try this. And this is that dream. It's that thing that keeps turning up for you over and over and over again. And a lot of times what happens is these dreams bubble up, and our intellect jumps in and starts popping them. Right? Bubble of a dream of, traveling to Europe, and all of a sudden, too expensive, pop. Another dream, going back to school, I'm too old, pop. So before the dreams have this chance to even become fulfilled, we start popping them. Pop, 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 pop. Whatever they were. You know them, right? You've experienced this. You've felt this inner calling towards something, and something inside of you went, nope, pop, squished it down. It's like that little kid that's like the killjoy at the park, right? Like you're just trying to blow your own bubbles, and he runs from out of nowhere, and he's like popping every single one of them before anybody else can get to them. That's our mind sometimes. And that's our mind that is stuck in fear-based thinking. It's the mind that doesn't see infinite possibilities. And this is where, because that mind can serve us very well in certain situations, but this is where we need to pull together our true wholeness, the divine masculine, the divine feminine, who we are as whole beings. Because the divine feminine is great at coming up with ideas. The divine feminine is intuitive, it's creative. It says yes, yes, yes to ideas, to possibility. And the divine masculine is that logic. It's the putting things into place. And without both of them, we are stuck in one phase or the other. We are either stuck in this place of just dream, 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 and never taking action, or we're stuck in action, action, action with our day-to-day lives, and we're just riding along on that camel. Very uncomfortable ride. So the moment we sort of reverse it, instead of letting the camel just take us wherever it wants to go, we tune in first to our core, right? If we imagine ourselves as the fish, as the core, and the fish imagining its fishiness in the sea as the core, and say, what is my navigation system? What is that is seeking to bring me back into alignment with who I am at the core, with my inner Christ self, with my true light? When we start with creativity, when we start with imagination, and we put that in charge, and then we turn over to logic, that side of our mind, the divine masculine part, right? Almost imagining like, hey, Dad, I've got this list for you, right? Or the honey to-do list, right? So we've got these ideas, but then maybe we need help putting them into practice. So our creative self turns to the logic mind and says, okay, here's this idea. You help me out. Logic mind, you help me with this plan. And once you do that, once you say yes, and here's the idea, logic mind just jumps on it, right? How many of you have ever asked someone you love in your life, can you help me with this? This is a big dream that I have. And the answer is yes, of course. How can I help you? When we employ that logic mind, the divine mind of us, the masculine energy of us, to put it into place, then we start to get the list. How do I do this? How do I actually take action on this? So it's sort of a reverse. Rather than living on the camel, we live as the fish. And then ask the camel, take me there. Give it guidance, give it direction. Bring me back to the sea. And it starts with the power of imagination, with the ability to imagine the sea, whatever your sea is, right? Whether it is taking a class. Maybe you've always wanted to play a particular instrument or be more creative in some way. Those pottery classes are always calling to you, and yet you keep saying no. Whether it's some sort of sacred service that you've been called to do, and you're just not sure how to go about it, and so you've said no. Whether it's traveling somewhere, getting that RV that you've been dreaming about for years, because boy, is it fun. Right? And the freedom that's associated with that. Perhaps that man told himself, I can't do the RV because it's too selfish, or it costs too much, or whatever his reasoning was. But in reality, Spirit was calling him forward for this sense of freedom, for this sense of connecting to Spirit as a whole through nature. We don't know, right? But those dreams, when we act out on them, we start to get that clarity. Yes. This is why I'm here. And it feels peaceful and blissful. And we're then filled enough that perhaps we want to jump on our camel just a little bit, right? To kind of veer off and like call out to the other fish, come this way, start navigating back in so we can be of service to them as well. But we need to fill our own selves. We need to quench our own thirst. And we do that by first imagining the sea, imagining what it is that's calling to us, saying yes, employing our divine logic, divine wisdom to guide us back to the sea. Now, sometimes we feel this sense of, I'm too separate, I'm too alone. And yet, Scripture tells us, time and again, that we're not alone, right? The kingdom of heaven is at hand. The kingdom of heaven being that awareness of the presence of God right where you are. Now, sometimes we say that in unity, right? We think about, oh, yes, God and I are one. I am part of the one. I'm part of the whole. I'm part of the universe. And how often do we feel that? Hi, sweetheart. How often do we know that at our core? Practice it and live from that knowing. Sometimes we get so caught up in just being on the camel, we forget the ocean. So this is from Acts 17, starting at 27. Actually, I'm going to jump to 28 first. For in him we live and move and have our own being. In him we live and move and have our own being. In divine Mother, Father, God, right? In him being a word that we just use. Makes it easier, makes it a little shorter. Golly gee, they had to put a lot of words in this thing. So when you hear a word that doesn't resonate with you, change it to what resonates with your heart. If it says him and you want to say her, go ahead. If it says him and you want to say universe, go ahead. But when we can claim that as being part of that divine masculine, it's representing a part of the whole. It's not so bad, right? We can say him, her. It's part of the whole. So right now, if we think of that him as the logic mind, as the organized mind, not that women can't be organized, right? We all have both. But that take action, right? This fatherly love, this energy of creation. So I'm going to back it up a little bit because that's a great little piece and we want to hold on to that. In him we live and move and have our being. Let's back up a little bit more. The God who made the world and everything in it is the Lord of heaven and earth and does not live in temples built by hands. So we don't need to take our camel and say, dear camel, please take me to church. Dear camel, please take me to this sacred holy site. And then I can get filled. God is the creator of heaven and earth in all that is. Not in one place, not in a building, in all that is. And he is not served by human hands as if he needed anything, because he himself gives all men and women life and breath and everything else. So the wellspring from our heart is not to serve God. Do you get that? We do not have a sacred calling because God needs or lacks anything. We have a sacred calling because it is the very expression of God as us seeking to have fun in this world in a particular way, seeking to express in this world and part of the whole in a way that serves the whole. Not something outside of us, not something outside of this room. It serves the whole. From one man he made every nation of men that they should inhabit the whole earth, and he determined the time set for them and the exact places where they should live. God did this so all men and women would seek him and perhaps search for him. Reach out for him and find him, though he is not far from each one of us. For in him we live and move and have our being. As some of your own poets have said, we are his offspring. We are his offspring, the very offshoot of the source of the wholeness, of the light, seeking to be the light in expression in the world. And those callings, those dreams, those longings that keep bubbling up for you are that source energy saying, let's do this. Let's show up in the world as this. Imagine if a cell in your body that was designed to somehow aid in your vision, some cell that works somewhere in your eye, said, you know what, maybe I just want to hang out, I don't know, and become an extra skin cell somewhere. Right? Everything has a purpose. Everything has a purpose. And that purpose for you, that light that's seeking to shine forward, is sometimes the things that we keep squishing down. It's us saying, well, skin seems easier. Staying on this camel seems easier, right? But it's not our purpose. So the first step is we need to realize we're on the camel in the desert as very, very thirsty fish. And the moment we realize that, we can start to turn around. Whoa, Nellie, turn it. Veer off to the side. What is that dream? What keeps coming up for you? And the moment you say, well, how do I do this? What is that dream even for me? Remember, in him we live and breathe and have our being. So the answer to whatever it is that we think we need is right here. We just need to get quiet enough with ourselves to hear the calling, to hear what keeps showing up, and then to ask, what is my next step? What is the next step? So it's one single thing. When you say, yes, okay, here is the calling. What is the one next step? And you keep turning in and you keep asking, you will be given that step. Sometimes it will show up one day for you like in 3 different places. You'll hear it on a song. I don't know, maybe you really want to be in a country band or something, right? And so you turn on the radio and there's some song playing about, I'm in a country band. I don't know. Can't sing. Stephanie, get up. Sing this country song. Right? So you hear it there. And then you're out for coffee with a friend and your friend's like, hey, how's your country music singing going? So it's it gets brought up again for you. And then you're on the phone with your dad later and he's like, I know you've always loved singing, and if you want, I'd be happy to cover cost of a vocal coach for you, right? It's things just start lining up the moment you say yes and you say, what is the one step I need to take? What direction do I need to point these camels' hooves in? You say yes to one thing and it starts showing up, the answers start showing up for you that leads you back to the sea. And it starts with imagination. It starts with infinite possibilities, which can be quite overwhelming. Trust me, as an artist, I look at that blank canvas so many times, and it's just I could paint anything on that blank canvas. Wow. All right, I'm going to go over here instead. It's a little overwhelming sometimes. And sometimes what I do is I put the canvas up and I quite literally will go and sit in my kitchen because my kitchen is just outside the studio space, which is really where the dining room table should be. So I set up my my easel with the blank canvas, and I scoot myself back into the kitchen and I sit there and I pray. What wants to be created on that blank canvas? What is seeking to be expressed through me right now onto that blank canvas? What am I feeling called to right now? Is it a sunflower? Is it a scene? Is it a memory of a trip I've been on? What is seeking right now to be expressed on this blank canvas? And when it feels too overwhelming, I turn to prayer. And half the times, after I finish my prayer and I open my eyes, there's just this sense of peace about it. I know exactly what I want to do. Maybe not the how yet, maybe not what's it going to be exactly, but there'll be almost like an image in my mind that I can see on the canvas, whether it's from a memory or something more abstract. It's almost the shadow of it shows up for me in my mind on the canvas. And then I know, okay, now I have the skill set, right? I have the skills to make that image come about. I have the ability to make it manifest on this blank canvas. It's the power of imagination. But remembering always, I'm not alone in this. It's not as overwhelming as it might seem when I turn for that moment just to remember that spirit that I live and breathe and exist as is seeking to express as me, as something in this world, creating something in this world. Then the answers show up, and they'll show up for you, whatever they are, whatever they are. One of my favorite Unity authors is Eric Butterworth. Butterworth fans? Yeah. How can you not love him, right? I think one of the things that I appreciate so much about Butterworth is his ability to make spiritual topics, spiritual ideas universal, right? He takes often Christian scriptures and turns them into these mystical experiences that we can know. And we could probably walk into a Buddhist temple and share this same mystical teaching. And it's that same core teaching. And he writes in such a way that it's so simple. Anyone can get it, right? It's like you hand them Discover the Power Within You, and it's like, whoa. Because there's that core truth, that universal truth that runs through it. So Butterworth wrote this: each of us is on a lifelong quest for truth, for meaning, for self-realization, for creative expression, and for awareness of oneness, the awareness of oneness with God. I'll read that again. Each of us is on a lifelong quest for truth, for meaning, for self-realization, for creative expression, for the awareness of oneness with God. This is our journey. This is the journey, the quest that we are on. And perhaps we've chosen a camel or an elephant or a wild tiger as our companion on this journey. And they take us to these crazy far-off places when our work mind, our family mind, our busy, gotta do this mind starts taking us off on these tangents in different places. And yet the quest keeps calling us back to this same place, to the core, to the center, to the place where we are right now, this moment, over and over and over again. How do I be the light that I was put here on this earth to be? How do I express this light? And the answer is always by remembering the awareness of oneness with God. And those dreams of your heart that keep showing up, keep bubbling up, those are the key. Pay attention to the dreams, because those are the navigation that will lead you to the truth of your being, right here, right now, as the light that you are. And so it is. Thank you.